Thank you for tuning into Wide Eyes, a podcast made to uplift and educate others about the Asian American community. I'm Katie.
I'm new.
And this is Anu. And in this episode, we are going to be talking about autism. And so, for you listeners, in case you didn't know, April is Autism Awareness Month. And so, with that said, Katie, can you explain to us what autism is?
So, autism is a complex, lifelong developmental disability that typically appears during early childhood and can impact the person's social skills, communication, relationships, and self regulation. So, within the autism disability, there is a spectrum. So, I'm speaking from my experience with my younger sister, and it is a disability, typically a developmental one. It can impact the person's social development as well as behaviors depending on where that spectrum of the kid is at. I can't speak on everyone who does have autism, but it does range from there are some that are nonverbal to verbal and very much more on that spectrum end. And there's some who have tantrums, some who don't have behavior. It really just depends on that kiddo.
Thank you for introducing autism to us and also to the listeners. And for this session, for the episode, we're going towards a Q&A session with Katie to understand more about autism. Now, going straight into it, as you briefly mentioned about your sister having autism, what is your experience with individuals with autism, both in your personal life and in your professional life?
Yeah, so let's talk about my personal life first, right? So, my sister, in her case, it's pretty rare because she is a girl. And on top of that, she was diagnosed at a late age. So, at the age of 6. And usually, typically, kids who have autism, those early signs appear 18 to 24 months, if I remember correctly. And like I said, my sister, her case is a little bit rare just because she wasn't diagnosed until she was 6. So with that, right, it's already a difficult challenge because there is a difference between kiddos who are nonverbal and kiddos who are verbal. So my sister, she is nonverbal, so she can't speak. So what we use, they're not, a lot of people think it's called sign language, right? But it's actually not sign language. So what I learned is that it's called PECs. So kiddos who have autism that are nonverbal on that spectrum, they have PECs, meaning that it may look like sign languages, but they're actually not sign languages. So like for my sister, she used like more. So more, she used both her hands and she put it together. And then when she say all done, she has both her hands up saying all done. So those are her little PECs. And then moving over to my professional life, right? I do work with kids who are verbal. So they're on that spectrum where they can't speak. But let's say, for example, one of my kiddos, he is verbal, but his behavior is on the little bit, I would not say it's aggressive, but he has this tendency where he wants to be the leader, like he wants to win, like everything has to be his way. It can't be his friend's way, because at my workplace there are a lot of kiddos where they run together and they play together. So for him, right, like he what we're teaching him right now is how to compromise with his friends, and he has a very hard time compromising. It has to be his way or no one's way at all, right? And I feel like this is just a little gist of it. Like there's so much that I have to say, but like I said, there is a difference between a nonverbal to verbal, and their behaviors are completely different too. So for example, my younger sister, she has trouble since she's nonverbal, right? So since she can't speak, she's frustrated, right? She has emotions just like us, but since she can't communicate that with us, she gets angry. And the way for her to unleash her frustration is by hitting her head or hitting the wall with her head. So she does that a lot. At the early age, she banged her head a lot and she hit herself a lot when she gets very frustrated. But now that she's going to ABA school, she has been very expressive in the way when she's gonna hit herself. Like she have like a sign where like I feel like she's telling us that she's gonna hit herself, and then that's when we just blocked her. And also I didn't know that when kids, they do some certain kids, right, when they hit themselves, there's actually this little like cushion. I forgot what's the name of it, but there's this cushion where you put it right over their head so they could bang themselves on that cushion. But like I said, there's so much that I want to like talk about, but I can't really think of right now. But like the main important part is that kids who are nonverbal do have PECs, and that's something that a lot of parents, they don't know about. And kids who are verbal, same thing too. Is just that they can communicate with adults much more, but they still have their own struggles as well. Hopefully, this answered the first question.
Yes, it definitely did. You gave such insightful behind the scenes of what goes on, especially working where you work at an autism center. So, yeah, it was definitely really interesting to learn about that. You mentioned ABA.
Mhm.
What is ABA? And because you briefly touched on it. And so I was curious about what ABA stands for.
Yes. So ABA stands for Applied Behavioral Analysis. So what I do is I'm a behavior technician. So that means that it's kind of like there's like stages, right, to go up there for ABA. So there's like if I remember correctly, I think it's a BC. BAB, there's that title. So you work your way up for applied behavior analysis, or known as ABA. And what they do with an ABA is just like you have your own little kiddos and you teach them lessons that are target for their needs and the spectrum that they are in. And you do get, as of right now, like I mentioned earlier, I'm just a behavior technician. So that's a BT. And there is a position called RBT, which is a registered behavior technician. That means that you're actually like not licensed, if you're thinking in that sense, but it's just more that you're registered within the ABA community. So I feel like it's an umbrella within an umbrella. There's like a lot of subset within that unit, but ABA does a lot of, like I said, lessons. You teach the kids behavioral. It could be academically as well, but a lot of the times, like my sister, she goes to ABA school and she has regular school. So usually kids who do go to regular school and ABA school, at ABA, we don't target students academically. We only target their behaviors. So that's what their school teach them for, and we teach them only behaviorally. And then with that, right, if you heard what I mentioned earlier, there's analysis at the end of ABA, and that it's because at the end of each lesson, we actually tally their PECs if your kid is nonverbal. Like, let's say if they did more or they did all done, you do have to tally that. And whenever there's actually this thing called a prompt means that you're telling them something. If you prompt them a question or you prompt them to do something, you have to mark that down as well. There's errorless correction. So that's within teaching the little kiddos. Those are lessons. There's like most invasive, the way you teach them, to least intrusive, if I remember correctly. And all of that is the analysis, because we tally them, we mark them, and then we give it to our supervisor, which, if you guys remember what I said earlier, there's that position called the BCAB, and that's our supervisor. We give them those tallies, and then they analyze those tally marks and they put it in a graph, and then they look at the progress of the little kiddos during that 1 month. And then the next month we move on to like new targets that are being taught for them in their lessons. So it's just, like I said, it's a lot. There's like I feel like it's under an umbrella. There's a lot of terms, a lot of technical terms. And overall, it's just me like AB, applied behavior analysis. There's a lot of teaching involved with that, a behavior as well. And you do have to graph their whatever you mark them down depending on your kiddos, what their lessons are, because every kiddo have, I forgot to mention this, every kiddo have their own IEP. Before your kid, even let's say they have a disability, before they even get to the program that they're supposed to be needed, they have to have an IEP to be registered for ABA school. So the IEP plan tells about like the kind of spectrum they are in, the needs, and what kind of like tendencies they have. So we look at their IEP progress report. We look at that first, and then we create those lessons for them targeting their needs.
Thank you, Katie. Yeah, as I was listening to you, Katie, you mentioned about spectrum condition. And if you can you go in deeper about the spectrum condition and how it varies?
Yeah, so I honestly, I don't know. I feel like I'm still learning about autism daily. Like, this is what I say to myself all the time. Like before I went to even working at the place I was working at, I thought I knew what autism is, right? But it didn't hit me until like I actually went there and taught other kiddos to have autism as well. And I feel like autism, it's such a like the field and like that the disability autism, it's so big, right? There, the spectrum is so huge, and there's so much within autism that it's a very like hard to like understand or digest if you don't really learn, or you don't really understand or been through the experience, right? Like really getting that experience helped me a lot. And for me, right, like I said, I'm still learning what it is, but I know for sure that in the autism spectrum, from my experience, my sister, when they did diagnose her, it ranges from, if I'm oh there there's the mild, moderate, and the most highest. So those are the only, if I remember correctly, those three spectrum that they have when they were testing my sister. And my sister, she ranged from moderate to high. So with that being said, when a kiddo, it really depends on where they range at. That's their spectrum and how you can help them, right? So like, I can only speak for myself because I went through with my sister. So with her being moderate to high, right, it means that she needs more help than kiddos who does range. They do have autism, but they're on the lower spectrum, right? Because my sister, not only she's nonverbal, right, she's a girl as well, so it's really rare in her case. So it's really hard. That means that we just have to pay more attention to her, give her the resource that she needs. So the spectrum, it varies from least to most. But in the ABA world, right, it will be called like mild, moderate to highest. So in my sister's case, she was moderate to high.
Thank you for sharing that, Katie. To expand on that a little bit, you mentioned that your sister was diagnosed later on compared to most individuals who are diagnosed with autism. And
Mhm.
so, what are some early signs that you can look for to see if maybe a loved one you know or just an individual has autism?
Yeah, so my sister, she shows signs of like autism at the age of 2. So right when she turned 2, right? Because at the age of 1, she was speaking, like she was developing like just like any other kids. She was saying hi, she was saying bye, like the basic. She was doing all of that until the age 2, where like all her communication stopped. And I didn't know why, my family didn't know why, but it's just completely cut off. And she just didn't speak, like, all those things like hi, bye. She just never say them again. And at the age, if I think 3 or 4, right? Like these are some signs in her case. She likes to eat, because you know how us people, right? We eat on the table and we sit and we eat, right? That's the proper way to eat. But my sister, she doesn't like to sit and eat. Like she likes to eat on the couch. She likes to stand. So she will, and she doesn't like her food on a plate. So like I remember like whenever we gave her food on a plate, right? She would throw all her food out on the couch, and then she would just stand up and eat it from the couch like that. And I also, this is a behavior that a lot of most kiddos have. They're very picky on the food that they eat. So my sister would only eat chicken wings. So that was the only thing she would eat. She doesn't like water. She only likes to drink Pepsi. So she likes soda. Those are the little things about her food palette and things that she does. She used to really like, and even at my workplace, there's some kiddos like this too. She likes cups, a lot of cups, and she likes to arrange them, because you know how there's some cups that are like tall, there's some cups that are short, there's some cups that are very like, let's say like round, like the mugs are different range of cups, right? So she would like line them up in order. Like it has to be a certain order in a certain color. So like if there's like blue and red and green, like colors of the rainbow, she does not like that. If there's like two kind of colors of blue, like there's a light one, a dark one, she likes the blue on its one side, the red on its own side, and she will line it up. So she used to have a very big thing on cups. So that's the, I feel like, biggest like sign for any loved ones or family to realize that maybe their kid might have autism. Because at my workplace, like I mentioned too, there's this little kid. There's cones. He's very infatuated with cones. Like he loved cones. So he would always like line up the cones at a very straight, even line. Like it can't even be cricket as well. If it move a certain side or angle, he will get upset at it. So he will like line them all up in a straight line, and like no one can touch it. Like it has to be just that line, right? So those are like some certain signs. Like I mentioned about their food palette, kiddos, there's some kiddos, like I might say, my sister showing like chicken wings, and she likes to line up stuff. It has to be a certain order. And then now like she's gonna turn 8 this month, and she moved away from cups. She loves hangers now. So she have a big thing for hangers. We even bought her own little like closet, and she has her own little like hanger. So she will stack up those hangers like daily. Like it's so funny because we gave her different colors. So I was trying to help her pick up the hangers, and then I put green with white. So she was so frustrated at me that she like, I wouldn't say she pushed me, but she moved me. She didn't want me, like I said, she's nonverbal, so she didn't know how to say it, but she moved me aside and she cleaned up all her hangers by herself. And then she only have the white, green, black hangers. So she hung it all up, white, black, and green. And then that's when I looked at it and I was like, oh, that's what you want. You want the colors to be all like the same. And I'm like, oh, okay, now I know. I will help you that way. But those are like certain signs that they do have. And regarding like behavior wise, it really depends, like I said, because like my sister, she whenever she gets really angry, she would just hit herself a lot. And another thing that I wanted to mention as well is I'm laughing because of the comments the both of you are writing down. You both are so funny. But they like things repetitively. So I know my sister, like she loves like any like Disney Channel movie, like Disney Princess. So she used to have a big thing for Mulan. So she loves I'll Make a Man Out of You. But she only liked Shang's part, like the beginning part, right? I forgot how it goes, but she only likes the beginning part. So she would always rewind it because she has her own little tablet. So she will always rewind it and watch in the beginning. Like that's something that shows she will always repeat it. Like, and she will always laugh. That's the thing. Like, I feel like they have so much going on in their like little brains. Like they have so much feelings to express, but they can't communicate it. But she will always repeat it repetitively and then laugh to herself. So those are some signs to look out to, because I know that there are a lot of like kiddos who have autism. They like things repetitively. So that's what they do.
Thank you for sharing, Katie. And as you delve deeper into the early signs to look out for in the autism spectrum, I wanted to know, how do we get more involved in the autism community?
Yes. I think this is such a great question because I didn't even know what like autism was or is, because like I said, I'm still learning about it until my sister, she was diagnosed with autism, right? And it was like not going to like sugarcoat it, but it was very hard to get involved in the autism community because not only I don't know much about it or my like family too, but I feel like within our culture, because the three of us were Asian American and we identify as Hmong, if, to be more specific. I feel like in our community, in our Asian community, right, we don't really talk much about autism or disability because I feel like we three did touch upon this in our like previous couple episodes in the early beginning of White Eyes, where like it is a stigma to talk about disability within our community. And it's considered as karma or sin, right? If you have kids who have a disability within our community. So it was really hard to get involved because being identified as Asian, right, we have that stigma already. So it was really hard. Like I think I remember telling my experience in the beginning where my parents, they were in denial for a good like 2 to 3 months when my sister was diagnosed with autism. Like they didn't want to believe that my sister had that. So that's already a challenge within himself, right, to get involved in the community. But like I being the older sister I am, and also just going to college, right, the reason why I go to school and all these things, right, I had to kind of look out the research for myself. I took the initiative and I really did all that. And I really, what's so funny? I think everything's coming full circle because I found the ABA school. I think Nu could speak about this too because she was there with me. We did, if I think it was it like Journey to Success that one year? And me and Nu, we were there helping Amerasia because we were a part of this organization, an API organization at our school, where we attended this event called Journey to Success, where all the Southeast Asian high school students came to our college and learn more about like personal higher education. And there were like clubs out there promoting, right, AAPI. There were like organizations, there were businesses. And then I found the ABA school that my sister goes to this day was the school that was out there promoting their like business, like their school. And then they're owned by two Hmong American lady. And I was talking to them like, oh, like my younger sister, like she have autism and she's not in school right now. Like I don't know how to get her help. And like what does your school do? Like what kind of resource they provide? And they were just telling me like things that they do within their ABA school. And I was like, oh wow, like that's so cool. Like I didn't even know that like ABA school existed. And it was so, I feel like refreshing because they're owned by, and like the founders, right? They're Hmong American ladies. And I was like so excited. I was like, oh my God, like this is so great. So I remember like after our like event, I called my mom right away and I told her that like we must get like my sister to this school. Like I feel like it would be a great help because not only it's gonna help her with her her disability, but because they're owned by like Hmong American ladies, and I feel like they can connect with us in like a deeper level where like they understand where we're coming from, right? That's how I was able to connect with that ABA school that my sister is going right now because, I feel like I said, I really did a lot of research and I took initiative a lot because, like I said, my parents, they didn't know much. They don't know what autism is. They're not from here. They don't know. Like they don't know nothing whatsoever. So being the big sister that I am, I did everything by myself. And I really wanted to get, I think for me, it didn't matter that she had autism. Like my biggest, I feel like what I really want to do was just get my sister help. Like I didn't care what it was. I know my responsibility. I remember telling myself, like, I just need to get my sister help. Like, whatever she needs, I'm going to do that. And I'm going to help her to my fullest effort. So that's what I did. And, that's why she's in there till this day. She's doing really well. She's improving. But I feel like I said, everything's just coming full circle.
I love it. I love it, love it, love it. Thank you so much for sharing, Katie. With that said, I know earlier you mentioned that your sister, you guys or you all started seeing signs around 2, but she wasn't officially diagnosed until 6. And so I was just curious as to maybe just girls or maybe why your sister was so late to be diagnosed compared to the average age that, professionals usually diagnose individuals with autism.
Yeah, so actually like I didn't even know this too until I started working within the place I work right now. Like research shown that boys they have a higher chance of getting diagnosed with autism than girls. Like rarely girls do have that. And I didn't know that at all. I don't know, like I thought that girls and boys they're equally like are able to get autism, right? But that's not true. Like a girl they have like a lesser chance of that, and I didn't know that. But I find it really interesting because at the place I work at there's actually only one girl there. All of them are little boys except this one little girl. And I find it so interesting because I know, right? I know, I see your expression. I know it was so interesting because I was like, when I first worked there, right, I was all like, how come I only see boys? Like, I only see this little girl like in the evening because she only comes in the evening. She doesn't come in the morning. So she only comes around the evening. So I was like, so intriguing. And I think for me, like, I still haven't known why the cause of that. But within my sister case, I think it's a little bit different because for her, like I already I don't know, like I had this like I feel like I this is like I don't know, I could foretell in a way that I can tell like my sixth sense, right? Like I knew that I feel like she have autism, right? But then yeah, there we go, there we go. Yeah, that's the word, hunch. So I had a hunch that she have autism, but I don't know for a fact because I'm not licensed, I'm not a psychologist that I can test her like with that, right? So I was all like, you know what? I'm just gonna let my mom know that I feel like my sister have autism, but let's see where we go from here. I told my parents multiple times, but like I tell you guys, I think within our like culture, like the way we're grow up, I feel like it's not talked much upon and they don't want to talk about it. They sometimes brush away like under the rug, like they don't want to speak upon it. So that happened in my sister case where I feel like we could have got her the help that she needed a very long time ago. Like started at the age of 2, I think we could have got her into ABA school because just so our audience or viewers are aware too, it's always best if you know that your kid around that 18 to 24 months, if they already show signs, it's best if you get them diagnosed right away, get the help that they needed, right? First, you do have to go through this process. Like I mentioned, you have to get them to if you have a family's provider, you go there first and they get you the help that needed, get them diagnosed. If they come out as autism, they take you to ABA school. That's the next step. So that's for behavior, right? So while they're at the age of 2, they get that behavior that's needed so that when they're around, let's say, is it 4 or 5, if they go to preschool, kindergarten, kindergarten. So right when they go to school, starting preschool, kindergarten, they already have that behavior. Like they already know a little bit, right? Like so the little kiddos, like I said, they're for example, my sister, if she's nonverbal, if she started at the age of 2 going to ABA, right, she would already have her pecs, so that when she goes to school, if she wants to communicate with them, like she wants more or she's all done, she could have those pecs, right? But since my sister didn't have that, she didn't got the help needed right away, she doesn't have those pecs, so it's hard to get her to school. So my sister, she didn't went to school until last year, so 7, yeah, when she was 7. So she started a year at 6, she started a year in ABA first, and then next year at the age of 7 she went to regular school, and that's very hard. I just from experience, it's super hard to do that. It's because she's delayed, right? Academically she's delayed, behaviorally she's delayed, so her development it's at a slower pace, so it's much harder for her to communicate, to express her emotions, to just socialize as well too. It's very hard. Like she's independent, but like she doesn't like to socialize with others, and that's something that we're teaching her, because going to school, right, she's surrounded with other little kiddos too, so that's something that we need to teach her. So like I said, I feel like for girls, right, going back to the question, it's interesting because I still don't know as well too. Like I feel like in my sister case, with all of that, like my family, they didn't know much, they were in denial, they didn't want to like kind of get the help that needed, that like prolonged. So it right when she had those signs at 2, I constantly tell my parent, right, but they didn't want to believe it, so it prolonged to the age of 6, because they keep on telling me this. They're like, Katie, it's not that your sister have that, no, she just can't speak, like she's still little, like she is gonna speak once she's like 3 or 4. They keep on saying that to me, like, don't worry, she's only 2, she's still young, she still has time to speak. And I told them, okay, if that's what you say. So like at the age of 3 she still didn't speak, 4 she didn't speak, 5 she still didn't speak. And then right when she turned six, that's when I told my mom, like, mom, like you do know, like kids at that age, they're like legally, you're supposed to take your kids to school. You can't let your kid just stay home, right? Like they have to at least go to school. And I told my mom, like legally, you can't let my sister stay home like this. Like that's not right. Like you're not supposed to do that. In a way, I feel like it's, I'm just gonna call it. I told my mom, in a way, it's selfish, because it's, that's my little sister, right? Like it's selfish that you're not giving her the help that needs it. And I had to say this too, like I feel like it's being irresponsible. Like I told my mom, like that's not how it should go, right? So my case is just like my sister case is a little bit different, because of, I feel like everything entangled. Like it was not just like that my sister had those signs, it was like my parents, it was culture, like it went into it, stigmas, it was a lot of things that came down to why my sister, like why it's so rare in her case, right? That's why I feel like in her case it took longer. But like I said, I always tell anybody that I know, like even like the little kids I teach at school, I get along with their parents too, but I always try to tell people, like if you see these signs at an early age, like start them early, as soon as possible, because it's, I not only to say that it's really hard to get a kid into the system, because there's a wait list, so it's not as easy. Like you can get them the help, but they are going to be put on a wait list, because there are so many kids trying to get into that ABA school or trying to get that treatment plan. So it's a very long process. So I feel like get them the help that needed. I apologize. I feel like I spoke like an hour long of just this question. I just have so much to say.
Oh, no, Katie, I love it. And, thank you for sharing that. And I just want to say that, as what you mentioned, it came as a surprise for me, because I personally did not know that it was much harder to catch autism in girls and compared to boys. And I'm really happy to hear that you spoke up and did something, to provide as much resources to help assist your sister. So I just want to thank you for sharing those insights with us. And then, as you mentioned before, that it was personally challenging for you as you were navigating resources for your sister and for your family as well, to just have a better understanding what autism is. If you can like elaborate more, like what was it like knowing that your sister has autism, and did it change any relationship outside of your family?
Yeah, so this is a really good question, because like what is it, what was it like knowing that my sister has autism, right? Honestly, I it didn't change the way I view my sister, the way I love her. It didn't at all. I still love my sister the very same. I still see her as Miss Little. I don't want to say her name, but I still see her as my little sister. Whenever I see her, I don't view her differently at all. Like honestly, sometimes I even forget that she has autism. Like I don't even notice that she have autism because I just overlooked that, right? So it wasn't hard knowing that my sister have autism. I think it actually made me want to learn more about it because I started to think like, oh my god, like once she gets older, like how is she gonna navigate life? That's what I'm fearful of the most. Not because I think that she's not capable of it, just because of autism, but I think it's that fear of not knowing what's gonna happen to her because she's gonna be independent one day. But like I'm scared, like I don't know, like even until right now, like she goes to school, I'm scared because I'm like, do people bully her? I don't know. Like I have these like thoughts, like, is she gonna be okay going to school? Like, and how is it for her like socializing with other kids? Will kids like her? I don't know. I have these like little thoughts that I have whenever she goes to school. Like I'm still scared. I know it's good for her to go to school, but I get scared just knowing like, will she be okay? Because she's nonverbal. Like she can't communicate. Like she only use her peck. So like, would they even understand her? And I till this day, I think about her identity a lot. Like I think about like, how is she gonna grow up to be like, is she gonna be okay? Like one day she's gonna be 18, like she's gonna start her own life. Like those are those like little things I think about. Like I have no doubt whatsoever that she will be fine, but at the same time, I'm a little bit just like I'm fearful of how the world is going to treat her. That's where I'm getting at, like how society is going to see her as. Like are they going to see her like a girl have autism, right? Like I think I'm not so much scared of what my sister is capable of because she's already so amazing. Like I love her to death, so there's no doubt that she's gonna do awesome, that she's gonna be great in life. But how is society going to treat her? That's my biggest concern. How is people going to treat her? How is the world going to view her like when she grows up being 18 and doing things like us right now, right? In the workforce too, even like the workforce, even relationships. I think about that a lot, constantly, daily. Like how is she going to be like? How is the world going to view her like? Is she going to be fine? Is she going to be safe? Like I don't want nothing bad to happen to my sister. Like I don't want her to go through any hardships. Like I don't know, because I feel like not only that, because I feel like you both can relate too, right? Because it's your family. So you always have that constant fear of like, you hope she's okay. I hope she'll be fine. I hope everything will be, great. But you can't help but wonder how society will see her as, because we live in a world where I feel like disability is still shunned upon, right? Like people with disabilities, they face a lot of discrimination, prejudice, right? All those sorts of things. So I always wonder like, how my sister gonna go through that? Like, is she gonna be okay? I know that she's gonna be okay, but I don't know like how the world, it's so cruel out there. So that's what I constantly think about. And the part where you talked about how did it change any relationships within or outside of my family, it is sometimes I feel like I can't really speak upon outside, right? But within my family, I just told you both earlier, like my parents were in denial. So that was the biggest shift around, I feel like, in that year of within my family, because they didn't want to believe in that, right? So that made me like angry, right? Because I was like, that's your daughter, it shouldn't matter if she have a disability, right? Like you have to get the help that she needs, so that made me very angry and upset because like I said, I overlook anything, like I overlook everything, like I didn't even care if she had that. My biggest concern was just getting the help that she needs because she deserved a life just like us. Because I have I have a younger sibling that's older than my sister, right? They're in elementary right now, and they go to school, right? But I'm like, my sister deserved to go to school, like she deserved the same thing. Like she deserved to do this, to do that. And I didn't care that she had autism. I just was just telling my parents that she needs to go to school because she deserved that, right? I was telling my parents, like, I think it's selfish for you to not get her the education that she needs. And I think that's just so wrong. So that's what made me angry, right? So that really kind of like shift the way I view my parents, and it made me like angry, right? So that kind of like cracked my relationship with my parents. And but outside of that, not I feel like it's hard to say this, but for me, I when whoever like let's say, because kids who have autism, they're gonna have behaviors. If you take them out, let's say to the store, to the park, to places, they're gonna have behavior. They might have tantrum, they might have behaviors, they might bang their head, like things are bound to happen. And I honestly, like, I'm not embarrassed by that. Like, I would tell people straight up, like, even you're a stranger, I don't know you, but if my sister, she was having she was being her head and you look at her weird, I will tell that stranger, like, oh, just so you know, like, she have autism. So, like, nothing, everything's fine, nothing's wrong. But I feel like outside, right? I feel some people, they don't understand that. Like, when they see kiddos have autism go through these like series of events, I feel like they view them differently. And that's what makes me kind of like, I don't know, it makes me feel like how do I explain this? I feel like it's not their fault, right? Because they don't know much too, but it's kind of like that judgment where, like, yeah, like, they're just looking at the kids that way. But it makes me feel like upset about it, right? It's really upsetting the way people look at my sister, because it makes me feel like you don't know nothing about it. But who are you to say those things, or who are you to view that way? But I always tell people that I don't know, if you don't know much about it, but if you ask me, I don't get offended at all. Like, I like people who ask me, like, how, yeah, no, they think it's like every other kid, they're in a tantrum and that you aren't doing your job. Yes, yes, and no, you're not doing your job as a guardian to keep them in check. Yes, and no, that's the perfect way of singing it. Yeah. And I would gladly, I want people to do this. And I feel like I would gladly explain to people, give them explanation if they ask me, like, oh, so like, what is autism? Oh, so like, how do you handle it? Like, where the difference? Like, if they want to learn more about it, I'm gladly to help them, or gladly to tell them about it. I don't get offended whatsoever. I think if people ask me, it just made me feel more prouder, because it makes me feel like, oh, you want to like just learn about it. So I feel like it's good if people ask, right? Because a lot of times people, they don't, they think before, or they like speak before they think, right? So it's good. Like, I like it when you ask me, just like, oh, it's that, what did they go through that? So it's nice when people ask me a question, right? Just to get to know more about what autism is. Because like I said, a lot of times people, they don't think, they just act before doing something. So I wish there were more people who ask questions about kids who have autism or disabilities, because I think it's nice to bring an awareness through that way.
Yeah, thank you, Katie, for one, being vulnerable, and two, sharing your experiences with us. As you kind of mentioned, like, you were kind of the sole advocate for your sister,
Mhm.
and you still kind of are right now. And so,
Mhm.
how has this impacted you, and more specifically, like, emotionally and mentally? Because I feel like, usually as care providers, like, you're the one taking care of others, but there's no one in there to take care of you. And so, how have you kind of dealt with all of this?
Yeah. So right, like, that's such a great question, because I didn't see myself as a care provider. Like, honestly, if I'm speaking from the bottom of my heart, like, I thought it was my responsibility because she's my sister. So I didn't like care much about me during that time. It was more like, whatever my sister needs, I'm gonna give her all the help she needs, the resource that she needs to get. So I feel like during that time, right, when I was helping her, it didn't impact me much. But in hindsight, right now, growing up, like much later, like years have passed, whenever I think about it or reflect back to those moments, I realized, like, wow, like, my younger sister, she impacted me so much in so many ways. Like, I didn't thought much about it. Like, I was really just like, oh, it's a responsibility. Like, I have to do it because she's my sister and I need to get her the help she needs, right? It's what I should do, right? So I did that, right? Because I feel like it's a sense of, in a way, like, she's my sister, so I have to do for. I don't want to call obligation, right? Because it wasn't really an obligation for me. It was more like, she needs help, so I'm going to get her that help, right? So it was more of that way, like. And like I said, it didn't, at that time, I didn't see it as a way that it impacted me, like, emotionally or mentally. It was a thing where I was just like, I have to do it, then I must do it. I feel like I was like in a survival mode, right? Before my sister. But now, like, every time I reflect upon it, right? I feel like also now that we're getting so much older, I think a lot about like the way she impacted me. um it was a lot because I like didn't know it impacted me in a way where I feel like, wow, like I can do something with this, right? I think I talked about it too in our earlier episodes, where I feel like it impacted the way I view people, even more towards my career, like something I see myself helping families in the long run, bringing awareness about it. And I at that time, like, I didn't thought much, but now I can't put a ring around it, but I I felt a lot of emotions during that process of like helping my sister. There were a lot of like anger, right? Specifically towards my parents. There were a lot of even like disappointment in our system because I foremost like like I, for example, like if I can give you guys an experience, or I mean like a personal like anecdote, it's my sister. It was so hard to get her into the system, not ABA school, but like the unified district. The school site that my sister was supposed to go to, because you know the area code that we all live in, there's always that specific school for that area code, right? So there's a certain school that my sister have to go to depending on the area my parents lived, right? But they would not, they helped us, right? Because I can't say they didn't help us. They helped us, but it's urgent, right? Like we needed their like attention, and we want them to help us to the full step. But I remember the school psychologist, right? Because that's her job. She's the one who's supposed to assess the kiddo and supposed to put the kiddo in a placement of that school in the program that's best fit for my sister. I remember, right, the school psychologist at that school site, she told me that if I am in the rush and I need to put my sister to school immediately, then I can go somewhere else. And I was so, there was a mixed emotion. I was angry, I was disappointed, I was very like confused. I was like, wow, like this is your job. Like this is what you're supposed to do. Like you're supposed to help me to get my sister into a school. Exactly, Anu. That's how I felt. And you know what's even more upsetting? She is the same kind like us. She was Asian. She was Hmong. And it made me really like sad. Like I was like, wow, because you know on our channel we talk about so much, like we talk about pride, we talk about our culture, like we talk about all of that, right? But seeing someone who looked like me telling that kind of thing to my face was very upsetting in a way where I was like, wow, like you're, it's because you know like I think we talk a lot about representation in our podcast, and it made me feel like that really sparked me wanting to help kids and families, you know, kids who have autism and families that have kids who have autism. It made me feel like, oh wow, like I need to help them, because seeing that, it really made me like just wow, like in disappointment, right, of the system. Like I had to advocate for my sister's like education needs and everything. I called the school district. I talked to the special education, the supervisor for the special education, and she was the one who helped me put my sister in the system. And it takes a lot of advocation for that, like advocating and just speaking upon it. So that moment that I just spoke about really impacted me in a way where it kind of like shattered my world in a way where I was like thought like, I feel like sometimes people are just there, right, for the money. Like they're just working because of the money. Like there's no passion. Like it's just like I said, for the money, right? So and that made me like very like disappointed, right? And it impacted me, like I said, in a way where I want to help families that have kids who have autism. And um most importantly, I think my goal at the time, it was really just to get my sister the help that she needed. It didn't matter, nothing else matters to me. And I could speak this truthfully because I knew exactly how I felt. I was very just, I need to get her the help she needs. Whatever I can do, I have to help her. So, you know, it wasn't, didn't really feel emotional, my emotions, right? It was all over the place, right? Obviously. But I didn't really reflect much about it until now, like I said, because now that we're getting a little bit just, now that I'm a little bit older and just thinking about it and reflecting on my sister's growth, especially because I had this same talk with my mom the other day, talking about my sister's growth, talking about like how far she came along. Um, and that made me reflect upon how she impacted me, academically, in the way where I view people. And it always make me feel like I have to do much better for myself and for my sister. And for people who have autism disabilities, it makes me more aware of people who have disabilities and make me want to do more than what I just know, and constantly want to learn like what other ways can I help my sister, or what can I do to learn about autism. So that's my little piece of that for that question.
Oh, I love that. Everything you shared with us and our listeners, like from your personal experience into even your work experience. And as you continue your own journey being an advocate for the autism community, especially in the Asian community as well, I'm sure that your family is proud of you. And, one day, your sister will come to understand, and I'm sure that she'll be proud of you as well. Now, going into it, like, why is it so crucial to normalize discussions in regards to autism or disabilities in general?
Yeah, so I think regardless of I feel like regardless of a kid who have autism, like even if they don't have it, I feel like it's good for everyone to just normalize the topic of disabilities way much more, right? Because I feel like even in school, we didn't learn much about it. Like I did not know much about it. Like obviously I see people who are a little bit different from me, but I didn't even know that. I feel a sense of like, I don't know, like I was just going to school. It wasn't really, like I said, until my sister went through that it made me kind of open my eyes and wanted to learn more and find ways that I can help her, right? And just taking classes. I feel like by taking, because right now I'm taking a disability course in my psych in my major, right? And I'm learning so much more about disabilities, like the history of it and the origin and how did it became a thing and the movement of it, right? And I feel it's really important to normalize the discussion of autism or any disabilities, just because like in anything that we talk about in our podcast, right? It's important to know, just because not only you, if regardless the matter if that people who have that, I feel like it's a sense of, for me personally, a sense of responsibility for being a person. Like I feel like it's my job to educate myself to learn more about that. Like it's important to know about it so that whenever I encounter anyone who does have a disability or not, I know in a certain way, right? Like know how to respect them and learn how to appreciate and ask questions if needed to, right? I feel like the both of you can answer this question too, because I don't think, honestly, like I said, it doesn't matter if you know someone who have autism or a disability. I feel like regardless of that matter, people should educate themselves on this topic. I want to like kind of turn it to the both of you, like why is it important to normalize this discussion as well?
Thank you for turning it around to us, Katie.
Yeah.
No, no, but I love that. Thank you for asking. And completely, like, I feel like Katie already said it all. And I'm just gonna add like my 2 cents to it. But then,
Yes.
like she said, you don't have to know someone in your family or a friend that has disabilities or anything. And I feel like as individuals, or we as people, I feel like it's just, I don't want to say it's like a duty or anything, but it's more of like people should take the initiative to learn, because I feel like we as human, we are so different in various aspects. And, being having autism or being a person with disability, it's just what makes us even more human in that sense of like, even though that's what makes me different from another person, I feel like it's just, as we as people should just take the initiative to learn more that, not all of us are the same, and that we are all very different humans in this world.
I agree with what both of you said. And I think it's just to add on a little bit, I treat others the way you want to be treated. It's as simple as that. And so just put yourself in their shoes. Had this been you in the situation where you had a family member or you have a disability, like, you know, wouldn't you want to be treated with respect, and wouldn't you want the mass to kind of just be familiar, if not like experts in your situation, but just be familiar with common knowledge. Like, I feel like right now ASL is and American Sign Language is becoming, like, I think they're now teaching it in like some schools, not all, some, but like teaching it like one of like the mandatory, kind of like Spanish, you know, when you, at least for me in my experience, like growing up, like Spanish was like a secondary language that we were taught because we were surrounded by a very Hispanic heavy community, right? And so I feel like ASL is on the rise to kind of accommodate those that communicate with ASL. And so with that said, it's just like we as a community should try to accommodate those who are at a disadvantage, because it's not that there's so little of them that we shouldn't care, but there's enough of them that, you know, it should be our duty to try to help this community that is already struggling with, you know, to provide them with help as much as possible, just so that, you know, it's easier on their everyday lives. Off topic one more time, but I saw this video of this individual. He had he couldn't speak, and so he communicates through ASL, and he was just, you know, going around, maybe not ASL, I think it might have been in like a British, so just sign language in general. And so the community, they came together to learn like common sign language terms, and you know, he realized like, oh my god, like they're communicating with me, and at the end of the video, he's just so heartwarming, and you know, you saw him break down into tears, because it was just like, wow, this could be my everyday life, communicating with people, and this could eventually be the new normal, right? Just people knowing sign language and communicating with individuals who maybe have a disability or can't speak. But yeah, and so it's just it's great to discuss, have an open discussion about autism and disability, so that you can help a community that is really under resourced and underserved. And more of just for you, you know, like before coming into this conversation, like there was questions like, is autism and disability, like, is it wrong if I say, like, you know, an individual, if they're autistic, if they have a disability? Like, I'm constantly on my toes because I don't want to say the wrong thing. And so if you educate yourself about this, you know, you can also be, what's the word, like helping yourself be educated in this knowledge, and being okay with openly discussing and educating others, and kind of like what Katie said, you know, breaking that stigma of like that taboo subject. And so that's just my take on it. I feel like I kind of went on a rant just a little bit too much, but yeah, it's just it'd be nice if you're able to help individuals live their best life, if you possibly can.
I am very glad, that we had this conversation because honestly, this is my first time expressing my feelings about this topic. I haven't really talked to anyone like about this like so vulnerably. So I'm very glad that I was able to have this chance to talk with the both of you. And you guys know how I feel about the both of you. I trust you guys, all that, all those moochy moochy feelings, right? So like I said, I didn't thought much about it, right, until now. And it's my very first time just like speaking upon about autism, right? So I did want to say that, just a little disclaimer that this is I'm speaking on behalf of my experience with my younger sister, the journey I went along with her, and also what I'm seeing at my workplace, what I'm learning constantly there every day. So this is only, like I said, my experience. I'm not an expert whatsoever. Like, I'm not licensed or anything like that. This is just from what I learned within my sister's journey and the workplace that I work at. And I'm constantly always learning more. Like, honestly, like every day I learn more about autism and kids who have autism, right? So this is a completely through my lens of seeing and knowing that my sister have autism. I would just like to constantly like bring in awareness about, autism and why it's important to talk about it. And I'm very glad that I was able to do it through Wide Eyes with our lovely co-host.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us, Katie, and for being so vulnerable. And so, with that said, this wraps up our conversation for the month of April. We can't wait to chat with you all in the next episode. Feel free to check us out on Instagram at Wide Eyes Podcast.